Hello, welcome to Let the Story Write Itself podcast. I'm Sarah, and this is episode 43, Building Habits That Support Your True Path. So, today's episode, I am talking about habits and my process of integrating new habits or keeping habits in my life. Now, I tend to be someone who moves more with the flow. This means that I'm not often a lot of times, if I'm trying to think about something and then implement it from my mind, it's not necessarily going to stick, right? So I could be like, oh, I want to do a workout routine every day, or I want to do half an hour of Mandarin language practice every day, or, something along those lines. So, say some of my goals are getting more fit, learning a new language, or becoming more proficient in it. Say, even recording this podcast, right? This is something that I kind of spontaneously just started back in February of this year. And I've been consistently recording two podcast episodes every week. And, prior to that, I, first of all, just didn't even do it because for I mean, that's the thing. It's like, how do certain changes actually occur? Like, how do you actually start doing something that is different than what you've been not doing before? So, for example, when I don't think as much, for example, I've always had in the back of my mind, like, I want to start speaking more. I want to share my ideas. I want to expound on experiences and insights and wisdom that I have. So, I do this essentially every day. Like, I'm always talking and learning and, mining the wisdom from stories and experiences in my everyday life. Like, this is just something I naturally do, whether I'm actually channeling it or focusing it into a particular channel or place or recording it even. So it was just one spontaneous moment in February that I said, you know what? Like, okay, let's get this clear to begin with. Like, I have a YouTube channel set up. Um, Even just fundamentally, like, I have a channel set up, and I think I'd been playing around with, like, the how to set up a podcast, and then I was just like, "Oh, I don't know. No, like, none of this is just flowing, none of this is just setting up easily." And then I also have Zoom, like, I use Zoom here and there, and I even have the Pro plan, right? So I'm able to record for longer periods of time. So these are 2 tools that I essentially already have and am I using. So and then obviously I'm aware that people usually record, like, in a more professional way, and maybe they have equipment, and maybe they're posting to, like, a place like Spotify or Apple Podcasts or, whatever other platform exists for podcasts. But because I don't actually have any of those set up and I didn't really like, to me, a lot of that stuff seemed quite involved. I was like, how do you actually set all this up? Like, I don't even know what the process is, right? And that was like a major block to me, just the back end tech and like getting it all, you know, set up in the way that I imagined it needed to be. And a lot of times these are things that are not really directly related to the thing itself. Because if we're looking at the core is that I just want to share my message. I want to be able to speak and essentially just do the thing that I'm already doing in my everyday life, but just channeling it into a particular platform. So what happened is that because I had these things set up, I'm like, you know what? Let me just do the most basic thing, which is just record, just start talking. And instead of just talking, actually record it this time. So when I say quote unquote record a podcast, it's like there's nothing big and fancy that needed to happen. I didn't need to have every step of the way already implemented or in place or set up beforehand, but I did. I just used what I already have essentially. I used what is already there and in place, and I just started doing it. And now it's like I have this is for episode 43, right? So this is where I say if I am thinking from my mind about doing something, a lot of times I'm probably not even going to do it because a lot of times things can get quite convoluted in your mind or made more complicated than it really has to be. And the beauty of simply going to the core essence of something is that in many ways, you may find that you're already doing the thing that you want to do in some way, shape, or form. And you've just got to expound on it in some way, like enunciate. And let me give another example of this, okay? So Mandarin, like the Chinese dialect Mandarin, is a dialect that I want to become more proficient in. I have a level of fluency, but there's more like, reading, writing, speaking, listening. There is more improvement, and I want to become more advanced and even, you know, who knows, like be able to communicate in business terms as well. So when I think about like, oh, how do I actually go about practicing? I don't necessarily have people that I can practice with. And, you know, you would think that my parents, like, you would think, well, aren't you Chinese? Like, can't you just practice with your family? Well, there is a reason that I'm not that proficient in the first place. And yeah, I will not get into that. But sometimes, like, yeah, you just cannot learn stuff from the people who are closest from you. Let's just put it at that. So, I know there's like a lot of apps, that you can use, and there's a lot of like self-learning that you can practice with online, this and that, textbooks, you can hire a tutor, whatnot. And I've tried like various methods of these, and a lot of them, they don't really pull me in, if that makes sense. Like a lot of these things, I find if it feels like I'm having to motivate myself or use like a certain willpower, it's not necessarily going to happen. So a lot of times I need to do something that intrinsically already fuels me. And something I love are stories. So I love books, and especially children's books, okay? I love illustrated books and things that kind of, fiction stories that tug at your sense of imagination and wonder and awe and play, and that sense of like anything is possible. So what I did, and this is something I did in like 2018, 2019, I was like, I really want to get more proficient at the Mandarin language and just start practicing more. But instead of like, okay, I need to go sit in a course or I need to go study a textbook and, all those like questions, and it seems so far removed from like everyday speech where you're just learning things in chunks. And like, while obviously you need to have a certain like certain basics in place and certain fundamentals, like for example the Chinese language, you'll want to know like the pinyin chart and like the basic sounds and basic understanding of how the language works. So I already have this in place, right? So for me, it made more sense to just jump right into reading. So what I would do is I would go and borrow some books from the library, and children's books, right? So they're very short. The writing is nice and big, and a lot of it is, illustrated, so it makes it fun for me. And I like reading stories anyway. So then I would, self-learning, I would just read all of these books, and each time I would also use tools at my disposal. So for example, translator apps, and because the books are so short, it felt very manageable. It didn't feel overwhelming, right? And it felt more fun. So I would be able to like take note of every character more closely. And this expanded my vocabulary, obviously, as you can imagine, because I would be reading all these children's books and I would be practicing the reading, the writing, the speaking component of it, and just becoming more familiar. And this is how I really like, I don't know, I never actually tested myself, but I would start to be able to read longer and longer Mandarin books without needing to look up as much anymore, because certain words or certain characters became so much more familiar because I was reading so many children's book novels that a lot of the characters started becoming more familiar because I was paying attention to each one. So this is an example of how, the thing that you want to do, tie it to something that already you naturally are interested in, and something that you don't have to necessarily make yourself do. Like I've tried like tried studying with like a tutor and like, those online things, even in person, um, or just like, those half an hour classes or those 1 hour whatever. And I've always found like those just did not help. Reading a storybook is so much more effective for me. So the point of this is achieve like set habits for your goals according to what you already are interested in and according to what you already have. You don't have to do things in a particular way, but you do have to like use your intuition to be like, what would be the way that actually speaks to me? What is the way that I would learn best? What is the thing that I would be able to do and that I'm actually naturally drawn to without almost like that top level down approach where you're thinking from your mind and trying to make yourself feel something rather than just feeling something and then getting your mind on board with that, right? So that's letting yourself lead with that intuition first and foremost. Another thing is that, you know, in 2015 to 2016, I really started going on more bicycle rides, like long 2 to 3 hour bicycle rides. And this was just like an intrinsic pull. Like I just started getting called to like get out more and like go on my bicycle and take more like longer rides. And this was a bit of overcoming a bit of inertia because prior to that, I tended to be more sedentary and just like a more of a homebody and being driven everywhere essentially and never really like when I was a kid I used to just go out and play with friends and like in the neighborhood and like in the parks and all this. But as I got older and like especially going through higher education and stuff, I found myself becoming more less playful, less spontaneous, if that makes sense, less of like let's just go out and like do this, a bit more like, oh, I don't want to. I just want to, sit at home and like do something or like just be driven somewhere or something. So a lot of times leaning on that intuitive pull of like, what actually would make it fun? And for me, a lot of this was going into nature and like being surrounded by the bounty and experiences. And this also led to me eating more fruit and like more like I would like I tended to eat quite well already, but this kind of brought it to another level. Like I stopped eating as much junk food as well because I was like if you ever exercise, sometimes like it changes your physiology that you don't crave the same foods anymore. So that's where your habits start to stack. Like one good habit converges with another habit and they kind of both support one another. So, and then another, it's like understanding the seasons of your life. So, for example, right now, even though in my mind I'm like, oh, I really wish I had a more consistent workout with routine. Like I don't really work out at all. Like I'll go on hikes, I'll go just like everyday walking and stuff, especially when I'm like, travel is so integrated in my life. So I'm always like on the go and, exploring new places. But I don't have like a particular regimented workout routine or particular block set out like I'm gonna do this at this time or whatever. And in my mind, I'm like, well, maybe I should like, take an online class, do some yoga, or, be more like go for a morning jog every day or something. But at the end of the day, I'm like, what really would that be for? Would that just be to make myself feel like I'm doing something? Or, thinking like almost like looking at other people who go for jogs and thinking, oh, I should do that too. So that's like an example of shoulding, right? It's like why do I think I need to do that? So sometimes if the things you think you need to do are not actually aligned with like your true path or even just like you know, what's actually aligned for you at any given moment, that's where there's going to be a mismatch. So if I'm just thinking I should do something without actually feeling that inner pull or that inner tug, it's simply not going to happen. When I was a kid, I used to make myself habit trackers without even realizing like that this is like really a big thing. Like that's just me, like a Virgo sun, essentially. Like I love that sense of organization and that feeling of like being on top of everything. And so I would have I would have like one of those 3-hole punched, lined piece of paper, and I would just, like, write like, draw all these bubbles and, like, different, tasks or daily practices that I wanted to check off every day. And I would have things like, "Eat your vitamins, drink this amount of water every day," I can't remember everything else that I have, "Brush your teeth," whatnot. And so something about habits really, really like, I just love that. But there's also something to be said about, just doing something for the sake of ticking it off versus actually like how does this actually relate to who you want to be, your core identity. So obviously there's a lot of sense of like being fit, being healthy, being someone who gets my ideas out there, who communicates, who is able to produce content on a regular basis essentially, who takes ideas and implements them on a consistent basis, recording these podcasts weekly. And something like, for example, I'm going to China in a couple of weeks, and I'm actually going to be studying Mandarin there for like a month. And that literally combines two things that combines already what I'm interested in, right? Travel, something I'm already doing, with the country itself, being there in person. And so while I'm studying, I mean, if I'm like studying, if I'm interested in Mandarin, I'm like, why not I just combine that while I'm actually in the country? And, for me, it's going to be way more interesting being there in person and learning from someone actually in the country than say just learning from an online tutor or in person in like Canada or something. Like to me, there's just a big mismatch. So if I'm like in Canada or somewhere else, I'm much more prone to just read storybooks in Mandarin and do self learning that way. And then I just had this great idea. I'm like, what if I just go study Mandarin in China? Kind of like combining two, what's that word? What's that word about like two birds and one stone or whatever? But it's kind of like I'm doing it's like I get to be in the country itself while also studying Chinese. So for me, that's just the way that I tend to move and operate. So if I'm already in like I'm in Hong Kong right now, right? So I'm gonna be in China in a couple of weeks, and I'll get to this is like a core goal of mine. This is something that I'm consistently wanting to like improve on and become better at, but I don't always find the way to do it because, like I mentioned, I don't necessarily just want to learn from an online tutor or an online app, and I'm obviously not carrying, Mandarin storybooks with me everywhere I go, or yeah, I don't necessarily. That's not necessarily a daily practice for me. So this is how I often combine my goals or allow it to flow from that sense of intuition. And just like a lot of times these things can arise quite spontaneously because I'm not thinking about it from my mind, like, okay, I'm going to do this now. A lot of times I'll just be randomly doing something and suddenly an idea pops in my head. I'll be like, oh, maybe I'll go and do this. And that's exactly happened with this China trip. Like I'm like in Hong Kong and I'm like, why don't I just head over to China? And then I also thought, well, if I'm in China, why don't I also, you know, study Chinese, Mandarin specifically. So you see how these things kind of just arose from inspired idea and action rather than like, okay, I'm going to sit down and set a schedule where every day from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. I'm going to sit down and study this. Like that just simply would not work for me. And this is definitely much more in the flow and intuitive. So the main point of this podcast is about setting habits that are actually fueled by an intrinsic motivation and that actually stem from your intuitive pull. It's like things that you already have in your core being that you are pulled to do, that you're not operating from a top level down, like your mind telling your body what to do, but rather your body informing your mind, leading with intuition, essentially. So, if there's one thing that what you can take away from this podcast is identify what that core essence or identity or feeling within you is. Like, what is it that is already a part of you essentially. It's intrinsic. No one's telling you you have to do. It's not something you're looking at other people do and thinking, oh, maybe I should try to do that. Or like, okay, let me try to implement this. But ask yourself, what really are you actually pulled to, drawn to? Chances are you're already doing in some way. And then just ask yourself, if I wasn't really doing anything today already, or if I was just totally open to what could happen, in alignment with this particular goal or core identity that I would love, that already feels a part of me somehow, what somehow feels like it would combine with this, So that core identity of being like competence and mastery in the Chinese language, that's a core identity for me. That's a core essence of something that I value. And then something like, well, what's already kind of like in my arena? What's already something that's easy for me? It's like, well, I'm already someone who travels a lot. Heck, I'm abroad as we speak, right? So why don't I just combine that with my goal, with that core identity? Go to China and interweave that. And that the thing is that I didn't think of this. Like I didn't actually like come up with this plan for my mind. It was just kind of randomly like, oh, maybe I should just go to China. And then I thought that I'm like, well, while I'm there, why don't I actually study like Mandarin? Because that's actually like, for me, not just sightseeing, but I really would love to develop a certain mastery in this particular field, the Mandarin language. So that's where you can start to identify what are your core essential values related to your identity, something that's already within you, a core desire, that intrinsic pull. And how can I combine this with something that already feels like easy and fun and something that it's like, wow, what if? Just ask yourself the question, what if, essentially. So I will leave episode 43 at that. As usual, if you would like to discuss even further or elaborate even more, you can always message me here or on my Instagram at Sarah Fair. And this is episode 43 of Let the Story Write Itself.